So for the 19th class, we learned about Mesoamerica. Now this topic is so large, we're going to devote 2 days to this, and even your book devotes a big chunk of pages 86 to 93. And that's a lot of pages about Mesoamerica. So if you miss class, please dig into those pages because it's a big topic. And before we get into Mesoamerica, I have to take a step back to the old days. Before 1492 and Columbus's arrival in North America, connecting the world zones. Prior to 1492, the world had 4 distinctive world zones. Where the action was Afro-Eurasia, Africa, Europe, Asia. These were the 4 river valley civilizations and the Silk Road and the Egyptians and the Persians and the Romans and the Greeks. Okay, all that stuff you learn about in the ancient world was really from this region, Afro-Eurasia. Now, there were 3 other regions, Australasia, not a ton of population, not as influential as Afro-Eurasia. The shaded area, the Pacific, it's a third of the world's geography with 1% of the population, so not super influential. And the 4th world zone, the final world zone, the Americas. And why it was the final world zone? Homo sapiens emerge from Africa and slowly fill up the world through the Middle East and the Indian subcontinent, to Australia, into China, into Europe, where Neanderthal fades out, through Asia, across the Bering Land Bridge, and you can see the final Homo sapiens to arrive are the people of the Americas, okay? Now, these people, I'm not going to do the assignment on 87. I emphasize this quite a bit, but I have to make this big point. Please don't take Mesoamerica and paint it as one broad brush. There is tremendous diversity between the people of the Americas, and the European conquerors who, took these people over, tried to create a narrative that they were savage and they needed to be saved and this kind of thing. That's just not true. Advanced people, they had civilization on par of anything else going on in the world, except what they did not have is the same immune system, and smallpox ravaged the region. And that's a story for another day, okay? So I am not going to read slide by slide by slide every word. The PowerPoint is on Google Classroom if you want to do this. I'm just going to summarize the 4 Mesoamerican groups, and you can go into a little more detail through your book, through the PowerPoint, and through the Kahoot. You have multiple sources here. So the first group, the Olmec, were around a really long time ago, 1200 BC. Now, we don't have written records from them. A, it was a long time ago. B, we don't know if they left written records. And the point of the Olmec, they laid the foundation of Mesoamerica. They kind of laid the groundwork of the people to follow that they followed. And we have evidence of the Olmec from these enormous stone heads. Obviously, they had a level of sophistication and civilization to create such a thing. So the Olmec were the first, and quite small. Okay, in the southern part of Mexico here, and the northern part of Central America, we see the Olmec, the foundation of the Mesoamericans. Now, the second group, the Maya were people of Central America. Now, they had city-states. Now, these city-states, the first was Tikal, which eventually gets taken over by Teotihuacan. And to run a city of 40,000 people with pyramids and astronomy and palaces and organized social systems, clearly a civilized group of people, okay? Now, this pyramid social structure, we see it again and again and again throughout feudalism, throughout Mesoamerica, throughout a lot of the world. The caste system in India, for whatever odd reason, human beings have a tendency to create these hierarchical structures that human beings do. Now, the Maya had this advanced calendar. In fact, a few years ago, people thought it was going to be the end of the world because the Maya calendar ended at that particular year. I believe it was 2012. And it was so accurate that people said, well, shoot, it's been so accurate throughout history, it's going to be accurate now. Thank goodness. It wasn't. But these were advanced people between their astronomy. They had this very complex language that it took people a long time to decipher, and it's in these stone stelae. Now, in terms of books, only 4 survived because the Spanish wanted to eliminate any vestige of civilization or anything that would change their narrative, okay? Mayans were very religious, And their practices are pretty brutal. In fact, a lot of people will think of Maya and think of just this. So this is from the movie Apocalypto. And there was bloodletting, there was cutting, there was human sacrifice. And sometimes that diminishes the civilization because they're like, oh my goodness, with modern eyes, you're like, oh, that's gross or that's savage or blah, blah, blah. But it was just their belief system. Okay, now the Maya had very advanced trade routes. So trade routes were in the Americas, just like the Silk Road and the Trans-Saharan Trade Network in Afro-Eurasia and the Indian Ocean trade routes in Australasia. There were trade routes in the Americas as well. Okay, Teotihuacan was a city-state that took over Tikal and altered society. And then one of history's mysteries, the Maya just disappeared, just very abruptly. And there's different theories that their cistern was poisoned, or they had some religious epiphany. We don't quite know, but this advanced civilization just disappeared. It was crazy. So anyway, the Aztec would be the third Mesoamerican people, and these are the people of Mexico. When you think of the Aztecs were the foundation of Mexico, and they had a distinctive art form with this particular color scheme and this two-dimensional sort of motif. They had a similar calendar to the Mayans. Advanced, precise, same sort of thing, but again, different. The Aztecs were the people of Mexico, whereas the Maya were the people of Central America, and warriors were elite in Aztec society. Being a great fighter was hugely important. The Aztec had this particular pyramid. Again, patterns are developing. I'm sure you're seeing them. Very religious, just like the Maya. And they had bloodletting like the Maya, but their gods were a little bit different. So these people would craft gods into what was important to them. So if they had a particular value, that was reflected in the people that they worshipped. Fourth and final Mesoamerican group, the Inca. Now, the Inca were the people of South America, of modern-day Ecuador and Peru. And they're best known by Machu Picchu, this elaborate city on a mountain. I have not been there. I'd love to see this before I die. And it's a really tough trek to get up there. Even very fit people have difficulty getting up there. So maybe my time has passed me. But again, if you're building a city on the top of a mountain, that proves some advancements. And in addition to their building, they had agricultural gains, staple crops that keep the world alive today, like beans and peanuts and that sort of thing. They invented surgery. They had a road system through very difficult terrain, through mountains and whatnot. So usually in history you think of the Romans as great road builders, and they were, but the Inca were great road builders in the Americas. And they had a little bit of a different vibe than the other ones, but I'll let you get into that. They were religious, but had some different values than the other Mesoamerican groups. The one thing you can take away from the Inca, they had this concept of sin that was the easiest to reconcile with Christianity, where Christianity has a concept of sin. Incan religious beliefs had something very similar. They also had this concept of life or death, punishment, reward, that the Aztec and the Maya did not. So Christianity was the easiest blend with the Inca compared to the other groups. But the region today, the Mesoamerican region of Mexico and Central America and South America, is very devoutly Catholic to this day. Okay, and we ended because the Spanish didn't deem the Mesoamericans as civilized. And I wanted you to think about what constitutes civilization. This is more of the higher end thinking. And I took this list, and I would love for you to critique this. Cities, advanced tools, social classes, specialized jobs, writing, organized religion, government, and laws. Is this an appropriate list? Now, the real bugaboo is probably number 5. Can you be a civilization without writing? Is this a biased way of looking at things? So anyway, that's a little more of a critical thinking sort of thing. So if you missed class, this video hopefully gave you a little overview. There's a Kahoot, a PowerPoint on Google Classroom, and put your nose into the book because there's a high likelihood you will see some Mesoamerica on your AP exam come springtime. So thanks for watching.